Y'all, I'm Hope here at Crafty Hope, and welcome to my channel and this 5th video in my Ephemera Pack to Journal series. So if you're new to this series, I encourage you to go watch the other 4 videos, but basically I have these Destash mixed media ephemera packs in my Etsy shop, and I decided to pull one out and see what all I could make with one of them. So I'll have a link to the full playlist of this up below, and down in the description box I will have a link to those ephemera packs in my Etsy shop. So far in the first video I made the journal and altered the cover, and this journal is kind of special because it has a front pocket with a signature, a back pocket with a signature, and a signature sewn in the middle. So I think in video 2 I made like a belly band with a like a zipper, and then a little altered tag inside an envelope, and then I altered, kind of like made this funky little cover for the signature in the front pocket, and then made a cover for the signature in the back pocket. And from there, I think those were the first 4 videos. Like I said, there's a full playlist. But I hadn't really worked on anything for the signature that's in the middle of this journal. So I decided that's what I wanted to do today. And really, I'm going to keep it simple in this one and probably just keep trying to add to it. Maybe I'll do several different things as we move on. I need to sit down and sort through all the stuff that's in that came out of that ephemera pack, because there's so much stuff in there, really. I also have a video that kind of goes through everything that's in one of the ephemera packs. I'll put that here in the upper right, along with down in the description box also. So, I decided to, make a pocket to start with for this one. And as you can see, I took a book page that was in there. This had a bunch of stamping on it, which absolutely I could have used for some kind of focal or something like that. But I really was just liking this paper and thought, okay, I'm going to use this to make the pocket. And I bent over the edge thinking, okay, I'm going to, kind of reinforce it by bending the top of this. But this paper has gotten super crumbly. So I took the other edge of that paper and I'm gluing it together with my Ooh glue stick. That just reinforces it to give it a little more sturdiness. And that's, with a crumbly paper like that, that's fine. Doubling up is great. There's plenty of stuff in that ephemera pack, so I could do that. So I'm kind of looking at this, trying to decide if it's exactly the orientation I want, what I need to do to stick it together. And I was like, you know what, let's go ahead and stick it down, using my Ooh glue stick once again to just put the paper, so I can stick it in place. And that'll help the bond, because I'm going to come back in with some of the thread in there. So I've got this one bigger thread spool, and then there's this other one that's kind of this tan color, which I thought would go better and not stand out as like an element in here. So I've put the thread on a needle. I did that off camera because for some reason I did it over my lap. That wasn't even on camera, so I edited that out so y'all didn't have to sit there and watch me do nothing. And I'm going to add some stitches. Now, it is a little tricky over in this crease side, so I'm having to kind of work a little funky. I am going to let you see all of this, but I'm going to speed this up a bit. So I'm doing these kind of side-to-side stitches over here in this corner, because obviously I can't do like a whip stitch, and I want to make sure this is super reinforced. And so I'm going to work my way down this, just kind of doing these back and forth stitches. I'm trying not to make too many of them because I don't want to weaken the paper anymore by, punching a bunch of holes in it. But I also want to make sure it is going to stick together just fine. So I'm going to go down this whole one, and then I am going to do a whip stitch along the bottom and the right edge of this to make my pocket. Now, I think you can see here in a couple cases I have to like pick the book up and let just to avoid hitting the other papers in here. But it was a little tricky, but it was an interesting technique, and I think that's what I'm liking a lot about this series, because it's making all of it. I'm trying to work as much as I can from the items that are in that ephemera pack, and not turn to a whole lot of my other supplies. But in this one, I'm actually going to add in some color and a couple other things because I can't solely work from this. It doesn't have, you know, there's nothing to color anything with outside of like the thread or the papers that are in there. But for elements in general, the sturdiness of things, I am going to work from this ephemera pack. All right, so I did not get myself enough thread on that needle, so I'm going to go ahead and tie it off real quick before I get too much further making this whip stitch, and I'm just going to get a little more of the thread, and I think here you'll actually get to see me put it on the needle. So I made sure I got plenty here, and I'm going to put it on my needle. I'm doubling this up too to give it some additional sturdiness, since it is just like, I think the thread I'm using is like a little sewing kit thread, because it's on this tiny spool. So I did a surgeon's knot, which is basically like a double or triple knot depending on how I tied it, and I am going to continue my whip stitch. Now at this point I think I was like, oh, I could have done a blanket stitch. Why didn't I do a blanket stitch? But that's probably for the best, because this is going to work out just fine. And I am going to have another oopsie up here in addition to not having enough thread on the needle when I get up here to tie off this bit of the thread. You'll see here, I'm sorry if you can hear my elderly cat in the background. Anyway, I'm going to tie off this thread. I'm going to go ahead and snip it here in just a second. I'm tying, wrapping things around, one last knot, boom, and then snip it. And I was trying to snip super close, and when I did, y'all, I snipped off where that knot was. Basically, there was still a knot there, but that last stitch had come undone. So I just pulled my needle back through, and as you can see, I'm just going to tie a double knot and then snip it again, and try not to do it as close. So there is a pocket. Now I realize I have not decorated or done much else with this. I am going to decorate what's going in the pocket. My idea for this journal, though, once I get it all like decorated and done, is I think I'm going to do a giveaway for it. So I don't want to personalize this too much, but I want to leave it opportunity for other people too. So I'm going to add elements like pockets and belly bands and things like that, but I'm trying to think of all of it as like little journaling places, or places where somebody else can add little things to it. And so that's my idea. I didn't like that the pocket was almost the exact same color as the paper I chose to put it on. So I was like, okay, I want to really kind of show the edge of this pocket. So there's a bit of like an old Archie comic book in there, and that has a lot of color. So I thought, okay, that'll help show that edge. Once I cut it down, I inked up the edges with some walnut stain distress ink on an ink blender and glued it down also with my glue stick. So now that I've got that pocket done, I kind of want to have something in the pocket. And I tried one thing, which is the cardboard that some of that bias tape was wrapped around, and it was just too tall. So I was like, okay, wait, there's an Uno card in here. That's a great base for something. So I decided I was going to basically alter it on one side. With some collage, and then on the other side I'm going to alter it by putting this piece of paper down as like a journaling spot. I think that would be super awesome. So using my glue stick, putting it straight onto the Uno card and putting this bit of paper down. Now this paper, I think I had painted with some acrylic paint and then splattered with either walnut stain or coffee. I'm not sure which, but I'm going to keep that blank for the most part. Once it is on there, as you can see, I'm going to trim it up and then focus on collaging the other side with some of the bits that are inside that ephemera pack. So, and I don't know if you noticed when I cut down this bit of brown paper, it was actually something I had run through an embossing folder to test out something. And we're going to bring that in a minute, actually, part of that. So I'm collaging down that some of the pockets paper, which I think works out great because that way some of that's brought in there. But I'm just using little bits that are inside the ephemera pack. There's a little paper punch, I think. First I'm going to pull out some book paper that's in French, that was super brittle and not really sturdy enough to become one of the pages in this journal because it's just so brittle. So it is perfect for collage. I tore it down a little bit. I'm gonna, yeah, just collage with it. Then I think I'm gonna pull out a little die cut. I think it's from like a crossword puzzle. It's a so I've got these Monopoly money pieces in there that I keep trying to work in, but I wanted to keep this a little bit neutral, so I don't know that I'm going to work that in. We'll see. I think I keep it fairly neutral. There's that crossword puzzle. Here's another piece of, yeah, this is all going to be that French book that I've got. And don't worry, that book was falling apart, and that's why it got pulled apart. But it's just an old book nobody was using, y'all. It works great for using in your art. So I'm going to use little bits of that to just cover this whole card. Wow. For some reason, those words were hard to get out. So I'm going to cover that whole card. You can see I'm being real persnickety using my glue stick. And it's none of this is going to make... I thought I was going to try to keep the word charming on there, but yeah, you'll never see it. I don't think. No, I don't think so. All right, I'm going to trim all that down because I did let it overlap the pages. And then I'm looking around trying to find something else that might work. I was like, you know what, first, let's push all of this back. I'm going to grab my white gesso, and y'all, I had some trouble with this gesso in this video because I don't know if my little container needs to be cleaned out or if it's not full enough or what, but putting a little white gesso on my table. I've got this tiny brayer I picked up in a thrifty haul, and it's perfect for just sitting on my desk and using on like a card like this. And iCAD is coming up, so it might be great for iCADs too. I'm looking forward to iCAD. Are y'all playing along? That's index card a day. I have done it for the past, I don't know, y'all, 10 plus years. And it's always, 2 months of just fun little daily, however you want to interpret it, on an index card. So I put 2 layers of that gesso down and tried that, and then I decided I'm going to alter this card with a little bit of Distress Oxide in Walnut Stain. So I'm spraying that on and then spreading it out with a brayer. This is something I think I saw Seth Apter do here in the last couple weeks. I did add a little bit of water to help move it around a little bit more. That also tends to activate the like oxide properties of those. And then I have been obsessed with these sprays I made with Paper Artsy's infusions. I think this color is a bit jaded, but I got several of those infusions, and I've been, I made them into sprays, and that's all I've worked with lately. So I did try that. You can see that some of the colors kind of got pushed back. I did look at that like strip of comic that's on the pocket, trying to see if I could like work in the colors from it onto this tag, but there's too many colors to worry with. So I'm looking for something I can put on here, and I found on that same piece of paper that I had made as the backer are these like tickets that I had embossed onto the paper. So I was like, okay, this is going to be my focal. How am I going to do this? So I inked up the edges, and then when I went over the embossed portion of it where it says ticket, I'm going to go ahead and ink all the edges of my card as well. This just helps frame it up, makes it pop a little bit more, especially once it goes into that pocket, so we can see it. And I thought I was just going to put it there in the middle, but I was like, I want to add some texture in the background. I need something black to do that. So I grabbed my Stabilo all pencil. These are so much fun to play with because they are like a pencil, but they're also water soluble, and they're just yummy. And I went to scribble on it, and somehow my scribble ended up looking like a botanical. So I activated it and was like, okay, all right. So apparently this is part of the focal. I don't know. And I tried it, and I was like, no, but I still really like this ticket. If I put it along the bottom, it should be fine. So that's my plan. I go ahead and stick it down with the Uhu glue stick, and when I do, I realize that Yeah, well, I'll realize it in a minute. I decided that what I wanted to do was to take some of the buttons. There are a ton of buttons, something like at least 10 buttons in each of those ephemera packs. And I was like, okay, I want to add buttons on here somehow. So I was like, let me see what buttons I've got. So many buttons, y'all. I really like that with the 3 buttons down the side, but I realized that as putting it in and out of the pocket, it might tear the paper because those buttons would like hide behind the pocket and have to go down behind it. So like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I decided the white one really popped on there, so I wanted that. But since there was no other white on there, I was like, okay, well, I've got to add white to this. So I'm using my gesso and putting a little on my finger and trying to accentuate those raised portions, just lightly rubbing just a tiny, tiny bit of that white gesso. If I put too much on my finger, it would just paint the whole thing and you'd never see that accent. So once I got that done, and y'all, I've got to fix that gesso container. I don't know what's up with it. I did put a little more gesso on my table, wet it with a wet paintbrush, and I'm going to splatter that white around on my card. And that just helps bring that white or elsewhere on there besides just on the ticket and just on the button. Yeah. So I will try it real quick, and then I'm going to grab that same. Oh, I'm going to ink the edges again because I think I forgot I had inked them. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I forgot I had already inked them. So I'm going to grab that same thread, put it on the same needle, and sew my button on. So I'm going to make sure that the holes of the button are below that top line of the card and well enough that it's not going to be close to the edge and be able to be ripped out. So again, I'm doubling up my thread and tying a good sturdy knot at the end. That's what's taking so long here, trying to stay on camera so y'all can see. And really what I wish I had done was started on the front of the button and tied it through and tied my knot on the top. But by the time I got this going, it was too late. So I did pre-poke my hole so I knew exactly where I wanted that first hole to go. And as you can see, I'm down just a little bit from the top of the card so it doesn't rip through or anything. And I'm going to go through those holes again, trying to use the same 2 holes I have poked there and not create any more to weaken the hold there. I know, it's just one of those little things. It's nothing huge. And then I'm going to tie it off, and it's going to fit perfectly in my little pocket and make a great little journaling spot for whoever ends up with this journal. All right, y'all, I still have so much of that ephemera pack left and more that I need to add. Oh, I did add some of that Artsie's infusion spray to the comic book strip just to make it match the card a little bit more. That's it. All right. Come back later and see how else I use this ephemera. I think we'll all be surprised about it. The first several ones have been hugely surprising. So I hope you like this. Let me know if you have any questions or anything at all. I'd be happy to help. Thanks for watching. Bye.